Hello everybody, I'm Nikon Ambassador Kristian Bogner and I'm excited to be here with you today. So I come from a long line of photographers. I'm a third generation. My grandfather started Bogner photography over 80 years ago and I grew up in the world of photography, and I started my own company at age 16 doing photography, and it's been my lifelong passion. And I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about something really exciting in the photography world. We're going to be talking about my experience photographing with the pre-production Nikon Z9. So this is an amazing camera, and I'm sure like myself, you've been waiting for Nikon to come out with a mirrorless flagship camera. And I can say this, that it has been worth the wait. This camera is really, really exciting. And I mean, it may just be my dream camera. It is really that good. And I only had a week with it, but it was a really good week. And yeah, so let me tell you about it and my experience with the camera. So I like to say it's elegant, it's refined. I mean, it's a powerhouse. It reminds me of a supercar because it just like, it exceeds your expectations. It's beautiful to look at. It's beautiful to feel. It has so many amazing new features and refinements, and I would say pro level features that, you know, features that I've been wanting on a camera forever, and they're here and they're now in this camera. So obviously there's lots of specs to talk about, and we're going to talk about some of them today, but I think that pictures speak louder than words, and to be able to share with you my experience with the camera, where I only had it for 7 days and I had to shoot athletes and I shot all sorts of different things in 7 days, to be able to show you my photography and my video work and see what you think, and see in real world what the capabilities are of the camera. So I'm excited to share that with you today. So we're going to start off, and I've created a really cool sort of a reel video, a teaser reel, just with some of my best moments, best images, and some real cool footage and some behind the scenes. So let's get started. Let's jump in, and I hope you enjoy this. I'm Nikon Ambassador Kristian Bogner. This is the new Nikon Z9, and I cannot wait to tell you about it. All right, welcome back. So let's get into it. For the first stop on our journey is motocross. And this is a new sport that I had never photographed before. And I thought that was the perfect test to photograph a new sport that I haven't shot before with a camera that I haven't shot before and see what I can come up with. So, motocross is fast action. There's dirt, there's things spraying up. I had to shoot, it's very dusty, so I didn't want to do a lot of lens changes, make sure my sensor stayed clean, etc. And yeah, let's get into it. Before we do, I want to share a couple of my favorite specs just to sort of talk about them so that when I'm going through the different images, you know what I'm talking about. So the camera does 20 frames per second speed. It has a 45 megapixel sensor. It has lots of new autofocus modes, but it has this new autofocus intelligence where it can sort of diagnose whether it's a person or it's an animal or it's different subject matters, and it does that really, really well. It has no shutter, so I think that's a first in the camera industry. No shutter, so there's no blackout. So it's actually really neat when I first got the camera, you're just constantly looking through and seeing what you're getting. They have a little bit of a sound that they've put so that which you can turn off, so you can get a bit of a tactile feel to what you're shooting. But it is really, really amazing just to be able to see what you're shooting without any type of a blackout or shutter kind of movement. It did not take me long to get used to that, and I absolutely love it. It's got a very high dynamic range to the sensor, which is great. Not your traditional sports camera in that it has such a larger dynamic range, VR on the sensor, and high ISO capabilities. On the video end, you've got 8K 30 video resolution. You've got 4K 120 and everything below that, 10-bit ProRes, full frame footage. You can also do a 2.3 times crop in, which is really great because you can more than double the lens you're working with, and you can do that really quickly just with one flick of a button. And that's really handy, especially with wildlife, and we're going to show some examples of that. And of course, the VR stabilization, I was able to shoot a lot handheld right in camera. So this was one of my favorite shots of the shoot. I just love the composition of this. He's just, launching into the air, and I got him right with the building cityscape in the background, and that just worked out. He was really great, this athlete, at kicking up dirt and doing these sort of deep carves in the dirt, and I just love these sort of dirt clouds that were being pulled up. It's great to have the Calgary skyline in the background. Really, really neat. I didn't even know Calgary had such a great, facility for motocross, but they do. And yeah, I'll definitely not be a stranger to motocross now. I'm sure I'll be back as soon as I get my production version of this camera. I'll be back to shoot some more. This was all shot in just one evening. This guy's doing a really cool move here. It looks like a karate kick. Really talented rider as well. I just love working with athletes like this. I think working with athletes, especially young athletes, I find it's always really inspiring, and that always kind of helps me get better images because they're so stoked about their sport and I'm stoked about photography, and you kind of put that together and co-create, and it turns into something really cool. So this is some 4K 120 footage, and I shot pretty much everything 4K 120. I love what I'm able to do with it. Of course, for different types of things, obviously you want to shoot towards your timeline if you have sound and stuff like that you want to record, but for freezing and slowing down the action, I love the 4K 120. I did use that doubler sometimes to kind of extend the length of my lens. And here you can see that I've basically shot in 4K 20, put it into a 4K 30 timeline. So that's a 25% speed and I've done some speed ramps. So I've gone like 100% speed and then down to 25% speed to kind of create some cool effects. And you know, there's so many things that the camera, like it's just so powerful that there's always like tweak after tweak after tweak. So of course I was learning as I go with the new camera, even just like the speed at which the autofocus tracks a subject takes time to learn and work with and things like that. So I felt like I did really well, considering, you know, when a pre-production camera comes to you, it comes in like usually a white box with no manual or anything like that. So you pretty much have to just figure it out. And that's what I did. So next on our list is Rodeo. And this was a great opportunity. The camera, the timing of the camera actually changed a little bit. So I had to give it back a little earlier than scheduled, but I was able to get it before the weekend. So as a result of that, I just made a decision on a whim that I was going to drive out and shoot some rodeo. And again, it was a really great opportunity because you have crowds in the background, you have people, you know, you have distracting elements to really put that autofocus through the test. And I found that worked really well. This is one of many shots I got of this guy. I got, you know, probably about 20 shots of him, you know, grabbing on and getting off the his horse like that. But I really like that one. Here's another one that I really love. I just love the detail, and I just love, you know, at first glance he looks like he's got two little chiclet teeth, but it's his mouth guard there, and yeah, I love the dynamic to this shot. Here are a couple others where, you know, you can see the speed when you're shooting at 20 frames per second, just the speed at which you're able to capture all these different movements. And when you're shooting athletes and sports, you know, the difference between just a hand up or hand down can make all the world of difference. The height of the jump, the kick of the horse, you know, all these little things make such a little difference. And so I love showing just the close little nuances between my favorite image and my second favorite image. Now, this is pretty cool here. Let me go back. Okay, so this is a burst, 20 frame per second burst, and this is actually showing what I'm able to get. And I think there's about 50 or 100 shots here. I think there's closer to 100 shots, and it's just flying through those 100 shots, and you can basically see each different one. And I basically took these right from the JPEG straight out of the camera, and they were shot vertically, so I just did a bit of a zoom in, so a gradual zoom in, just so you could get a little closer to the action because we're on a horizontal display. But yeah, that's it. Basically, the camera is able to get 20 frames per second. Now, I had to shoot the camera RAW plus JPEG because I didn't know if I would be actually able to work with my RAW images. Sometimes with pre-production cameras, you actually can't, there's nothing to open your RAW images, they're locked down. So thankfully I was able to sort of in the last minute work with a piece of software that I could work with my RAW images, but I had to shoot JPEG as well. So that was also extra taxing on the camera because the camera had to shoot JPEGs on one card and RAW on the other. Now the camera has 2 CF Express card slots, which is really great. And yeah, it was able to like handle that, which at, you know, 20 frames per second, 45 megapixels, that was, it's an impressive amount of data that the camera can throughput. So here are a few others. So the 20 frames per second at 45 megapixels, you can see how close these images are to one another. And the camera actually can do more frames per second, but with reduced image sizes. So you can capture every nuance of the moment. This was my favorite of the that grouping of images. So this is one that I processed, and yeah, you can just see, like, I love the detail. I love that the autofocus just had no problem staying on that face. And so basically, speaking to autofocus, my favorite out of all the different autofocus modes, and there's lots of them. My favorite, because I come from loving single point autofocus or D9 or a smaller grouping on, say, the D6 or D5, there is a similar type mode on this camera, but then there's also a similar smaller autofocus point, or different size autofocus points, but then there is the AI attached to that. So it can then sort of diagnose whether or not it's a person or it's an animal, and it can focus in on those eyes within that initial focus point. And I found that work extremely, extremely well. So here's another video here. This is straight out of the camera, 4K 120, and I've just slowed it down to its actual speed at a 4K 30 timeline, so it's a 25% speed. And what just blows me away is that I'm shooting this from the crowd, not from a special spot, and I'm hand holding all of this, and it just is, it's so steady, it's so smooth, it looks so professional, and the autofocus, it's not going back and forth, it's not struggling, the autofocus is just keeping up perfectly, and it's doing a great job. And you can see as the bull pans over, and I have to pan over to keep up to the bull, you can just see how smooth a transition that is. I'm really excited to use this camera, and really excited to get my pre-production version, my production version eventually, and just see what I can do with it. So our next stop is roller skiing, and this athlete is an athlete on the Canadian cross-country ski team. And yeah, she was good enough to come out, and we did a very short shoot. It was like probably about 45 minutes. I hopped on my bike to go along with her, so I had to keep everything that I wanted to shoot with in my just backpack, and I biked with her, and yeah, this is what we got. And what I really wanted to capture is just to see how the autofocus did as she moved towards me. You can see I had no problem, did a beautiful job. It's a really kind of a cool sport, and we certainly have some great facilities for it here in Canmore. And I just liked the way some of these S-curves were at this spot, and some of the light coming across. The light was quite low, and I thought it looked really cool. A little bit of mountains in the background. And then for this video shot, I was practicing. Basically, instead of having the autofocus to autofocus full time, I had it to AFC, autofocus continuous, and I was using back button focus to basically hold down the focus for as long as I wanted it, and then let go of the focus when I wanted it to blur out at the end of my frame. And it worked perfectly. So the reason why that shoot was so short was because directly afterwards, we did the bike park shoot. And bike park is a great test as well, because often the athletes are coming off a jump and I'm blind. I can't, in the sense that I can't see them until they actually come off the jump. And then I don't know exactly where they're gonna come off the jump, so I basically have to get them in my frame and then initialize the autofocus. And I was super impressed just how fast the camera locked on and how it was able to keep that lock on all throughout. So here's a couple of the shots that I got here. It's BMX as well. I was so lucky to be able to work with the wonderful athletes that I had. They were all so great. This young guy here, he was stoked, and he was just great. He just kept doing the jump over and over and over for me. And as you can see from the earlier shots, we started in the daylight, and I convinced him to come back because I wanted to try to get some of this smoky sky that we've been having. It was really smoky when I had the camera, but it was producing some interesting sunsets and sometimes some sun rays. And we were lucky enough to get that this evening. And I set up a broncolor light with a battery pack so that I could just get a little bit of directional light on the athlete, because without that directional light, of course, I was getting a silhouette, which was also pretty cool. And I just love, again, the detail. If you look at the edge detail on that silhouette, and of course just how dark it really was that I was shooting, the camera did so well. I was really, really impressed with it. For this shot, it was one of our final ones. We got these sun rays. Those are really there, and it's always great when the weather kind of works out, the athlete works out, and of course, you know, the timing on that camera to be able to see through that display. It's almost like looking through the electronic viewfinders. Almost, to me, it's like looking through an optical viewfinder, because it's just, there's no blackout. It's consistent. I feel like I can nail that shot precisely in a way that I just couldn't before with the mirrorless cameras, and I'm definitely very excited about that. And this is just a quick vertical video clip that I shot handheld. And here's another clip, and again, handheld, and I'm just panning, and I'm taken back at just how smooth that pan looks. And of course, at 4K 120, because we're slowing it down a quarter time to 1/4 of the speed, you know, everything is going to look a little smoother, right? A little less jittery because it's slowing it down. And it's just, so that's a really nice feature to have in order to get those action shots. And I think it looks really, really great. So what I've learned when you have these cameras for just like a week, you just kind of have to go with it. And, you know, some things are going to fall through. Weather might not always work out. Athletes might not always work out. There's always situations. And we had these tickets to a Gord Bamford concert the night that I got the camera. And like I said, I wasn't expecting the camera to have it earlier. And so, so we went, and I put some extra housing and tape and sort of bulky stuff on the camera. I had it in my pack. I was able to get in with it, and I was sitting just literally up on the bleachers with everybody else. And anyways, I was able to get a couple great shots and pull the camera out in the dark and get a couple great shots right from the bleachers. And what really surprised me was just how good the sensor was. I was shooting right into the light, and just the way that the dynamic range and the way that I was able to basically get colors like this right out of the camera. These are untouched images. And whether it was orange light or blue light, just the color rendition of this camera was really impressive. And of course, just the fact that I was taking these images with a long lens in the dark from bleachers that were bouncing a little bit as people jumped or danced with their excitement for the band. So it was definitely a challenging moment, but really the camera made it pretty easy. So this is pretty cool too. I did my first 8K footage that night, and basically it's 8K footage that I put into a 4K timeline. So I've zoomed in and out on it a little bit, and you can just see how smooth that looks. And here, this is the same exact footage that I just zoomed out on, but here I just zoomed in and then panned across. And I think it just looks so pro to be able to do that. And I've definitely used it. I used it a few times on some of the different stuff that I was doing with it over the course of the week, and where I was able to do some of those pro-looking shots where it looks like a beautiful cinematic pan, but really it's just one shot in 8K that I was able to basically work with in a 4K timeline. And of course, the other impressive thing is that these video clips, I mean, you can shoot ProRes, you can shoot in all different things, but I'm basically just shooting and I'm doing the color correction in camera for this, and these are right out of the can. I do nothing to these. And for this fireworks shot, it was literally autofocusing on the fireworks in the dark and producing beautiful results. So autofocus definitely is very, very impressive. I would dare say it's as good as the D5, and it's different because it's got different focus modes. But I think that what it can do with the AI, I mean, it's phenomenal. And I just have to look at the percentage of images that I'm getting in focus, or the percentage of images that I'm getting perfectly sharp, and they're extremely high. It's extremely high. It's probably like 98%. So it's I was really impressed by that. So wildlife wasn't something that I was focused in on. I really wanted to get out for a day and shoot, you know, find some bears or find something really cool to shoot, but that didn't happen. But I was keeping my eyes out to spot for wildlife, and I did get some good shots along the way. So this was going up to the Stampede House. I spotted these birds here, and I got a couple of good shots in flight. These were shot at 700 millimeters, so my 500 PF with my 1.4 times tele. So, you know, at 700 millimeters, it can be tough to get to freeze that shot and follow the birds, but not on this camera. It just handled it with ease, and I was able to get like at least 1,000 good shots of osprey and some other birds. This is one of my favorite ones of the osprey because I actually had we had a lot of smoky weather, but I had some sort of more blue sky weather on this day, and yeah, I was able to get some nice blue in the background, which I think just kind of adds to the shot. Now this is pretty cool. This is a sequence of my burst, and here I am. I'm shooting these at 700 millimeters, so I'm sitting there with a big lens and it's about a minute long that I'm shooting in this burst. And I may have stopped the shutter for a minute to like readjust, but basically this is a minute straight of shooting, and the osprey is moving around, and I'm moving along with it. And I think there were a couple moments where there was two osprey, and so I think I was probably like trying to be aware of my surroundings as I'm shooting, and I think probably at some points I've kind of moved my eye a little bit away from the viewfinder and just tried to get a perception of where I am. But I mean, you can see out of all of these shots, and there is about 510 or something here, I think I counted like one shot I think that was out of focus. So it's really high percentage and really impressive, even with the bird, you know, the osprey, like, you know, I'm not getting it perfect in my frame. Had I shot with just the 500, I probably would have had an easier time, but I really wanted to get a nice tight shot. And you could see, especially at the end there, as the osprey got closer, and I probably got a little bit more relaxed and calm with the shot, I was able to get like that really full frame shot. So speed is amazing, autofocus is amazing, and let's talk detail now. And there is tons of it. And I think for me, that's such a game changer to be able to like now shoot like double the resolution of what the D5 and D6 was for a flagship, you know, to be able to shoot the same resolution as my Z7 II, and to be able to get the speed and the video and everything. I think that's what makes it my dream camera, because it's one camera that can do all that. And then, you know, shoot handheld video like this. Now this is kind of crazy because this is 2300 millimeters. So I have my 500 PF doubled. So that's 1,000 millimeters, and then I have 2.3 times crop on, so that's 2300 millimeters. And you can just see, I got a long reel of footage with that, but you can just see how sharp that is. Here's my little pal Zeus, and just practicing animal detect autofocus. Worked like a charm. This was just driving down the road. I stopped, I saw these horses pulled over, went out, and they just lined up like this, and I got a great shot. This was as I was driving home. Out of the corner of my eye, saw this osprey, and then I took a double take because it had a fish in its talons. So the sun, you can see there's alpenglow, the sun was just setting. I followed the osprey in my car for probably about like 5 kilometers. It went pretty far with its fish, and then I almost gave up, but I found this branch, and I saw the osprey on it, and boy, it was getting dark. The sun was down, and I was shooting at 10,000 ISO, and you know, I was at 700 millimeters. I didn't want to disturb the osprey because it was having its dinner. So I just kind of like pulled over in my car pretty far away and then put the window down a little bit and then just tried to brace my arm on the window. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty dark. I was shooting maybe 1/800th of a second. I would have liked to have been shooting a little faster, but I got some great shots regardless. And this is what really blew me away, was just this video. So check this out. This osprey is eating, and I believe this is my, I'm doubling my lens here, again, the 2.3 times, and I got some really cool footage. And this is just a small fraction. I probably got like a couple minutes of this osprey eating this fish. And yeah, it just, I can't get over how rock steady it is for handheld. It's pretty cool to be able to do that now. And I think, yeah, I mean, I just think it's a real game changer. Another great example of just how good this autofocus is. This was a dragonfly that I photographed, and it was almost nighttime with a 700 millimeters. So I have a thing for trying to get dragonflies or hummingbirds. And you know, usually I'll use a 70 to 200 for that because it's easier to get them when you can go to 70 and then zoom into 200 and you can kind of frame it. But at 700, I was able to actually get a sequence of multiple shots in focus of a dragonfly, which is certainly extremely impressive. So landscape photography. I didn't get a chance to do as much as I wanted. I had smoky skies for most of it, but this was one evening where we had smoky skies, but also we had some kind of cool clouds happening. So I went out just for a little drive, got a couple shots, and this is what I came up with. Oh, and before that, I actually had an opportunity to take a quick helicopter ride up to Hay Glacier. And I was hoping to have the national team, cross-country ski team, training up there, and I was going to try to get a few shots, but no one was training at the time. It was kind of in and out. I was just up there for about an hour, but I got to like ride in the front seat with the pilot, and this is one of the shots that I took of the glacier right out of the glass of the front of the helicopter, which is pretty cool. And then back to some of this moody light, and you know, you can really see the dynamic range show off here, and just how good it is where you're dealing with these nuances of density. And of course, the detail, amazing. I have a 44-inch inkjet printer. I print all my own stuff. I love seeing the detail, and I'm so happy that we have now a 45 megapixel flagship. That is a very, very good thing, and I'm very excited about it. So here's another example of some 8K footage to put to use. I didn't have time to do a time lapse, and the wind was actually moving these clouds around pretty quick. So I just put the camera on a tripod and I recorded it at 8K. And then when I brought it into my computer after, I just sped it up by 4 times, so 400%. And I did a bit of a pan across the 8K footage in a 4K timeline and was able to get this really beautiful effect. So lastly, on the landscapes, I just super impressed by the camera's ability to photograph right at the sun and get sort of a stepless gradient of the red and get detail in the sun. So I use in my computer here and my monitor, I've got a monitor that basically can display pretty much all of Adobe RGB for color space, and I use a ProPhoto RGB workflow for a lot of what I do. And to be able to see just how good and how stepless, there's no gradation, just that all the bits that this camera can do and pull in color is really, really impressive. And I think I'm excited to kind of, discover over time more and more about what this sensor can do. But you can just see just that edge detail around the sun, just how good that is and how it was able to resolve that. So our last stop is indoor action. And this was, I think, my favorite shoot because it was just so technical, so fun. It was such a good crew. The owner of this gym was super amazing to work with, and I'm super grateful for him allowing us to shoot in his gym with his athletes. The athletes were phenomenal. They both do sort of Cirque du Soleil strap kind of work. This is the gym owner here. He's pretty extraordinary guy himself, and obviously extremely fit, and he instructs on this strap work. So he actually did one where he went up and did some of the hang from the straps and drank an espresso while he did it. So again, it was a really cool crew. We had to shoot after they shut down the gym in the evening, so it was like only a couple hours, and we were all there pretty late. But yeah, I was able to set up all my cool lighting gear and try it for the first time with the Z9, and it just worked flawlessly. I was able to get, you know, high speed shots. When I was shooting strobe like this, my brom color was keeping up. My Scro S pack was keeping up at about 20 frames per second. So I was getting, you know, just was able to like really freeze the action with strobe, which was great. And yeah, I was able to capture, I think, the essence of what these athletes could do, and their strength, and their muscularity, and just the intensity in their faces. I love this intensity. I love that, and it was, you know, great to be able to capture that with strobe. Then we switched over to continuous light sources. So I had some different. It was kind of a mixed bag of continuous lights, some RGB lights, a Fresnel, like bunch of different things. And we just kind of got to experiment and play a bit with light. And if you notice on the left, there's that little bit of cool flare out. And it's because I had just the light kind of in the frame, and I just love the way this sensor handles it. It just looks so cinematic, the way that it kind of deals with that directional light, right? You don't get this hard flare, you get this beautiful soft, I don't know, I want to say bokeh-like flare, but I just love it. I love the way that it handles it, and I love just that, again, that dynamic range, that I can get speed and such dynamic range, which hasn't been the case. You know, usually you have a much more punchy type image, and you can go punchy with this, but you can also just go a little softer and really pull all that detail out. And of course, I got these while she was spinning around, and you'll get a better impression of it here with a little bit of some of the footage that I got and a little bit of BTS. And again, these were just a few of the several sort of segments that I filmed of them. And you can just see the strength and power that they have here. I really liked having the, you know, kind of the warm and cool lights. I felt like it was a good test of the camera, but also looked beautiful. And here, basically, I've shot at 4K 120. I've shot on my gimbal, so I was able to figure out getting the camera to work perfectly with the gimbal. Again, no manual, so it took me a little bit, but there was just one setting that I needed to change, and it worked perfectly. And yeah, I just really liked the way that I was able to just kind of use the speed ramping. So I would slow it down to 25% speed, and then back up to 100% speed. Sometimes go to 50% speed, but just with a little bit of the adjustment in the speed ramp, I was able to kind of produce something that looked pretty cool. It's a little closer footage with her as well, and kind of mix that in with some of the little further away footage. And it just looks so beautiful. I loved her in the dress and just the flow that I was getting there. I thought it just looked really stunning. And I just really don't know how they were able to hang and do this for so long, because this wasn't just a one take. We did this for a couple hours. They were working it. So I think they all got a pretty good workout. And like I said, I'm so grateful to have worked with them. Really good people, good energy at the shoot. And that just makes it more fun, more awesome. Here's a little BTS here. You can see me with the gimbal. And you can see as he goes up, I go up with the gimbal to try to kind of get a cool tracking shot. And here, moving around a little bit with her. And over here, this is me shooting with the studio strobe. And you can just see the speed of the flashes going off over and over and over again. So I was able to like get, well, I was able to fill a whole 325 gig card in one shoot anyway. So that it adds up pretty quick. So I'll leave with this slide. Hold on to your vision, trust in the moment, and let inspiration be your guide. And while you're at it, make sure you enjoy the ride. You know, just trust in your vision, right? Like when these things come to you, when I had to produce all this stuff, I had some ideas, and I was only told about the camera about a week in advance, and then I was told about the date. And then, you know, you have an idea that comes to you, and then you write it down, and another idea comes to you and you write it down, and then you see if it sticks. You reach out to athletes, you know, and these things, it seems like a big project sometimes, but these things they come together, and they're amazing. And I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to play and work with this pre-production Z9. I'm excited, super excited to get my production version of this camera whenever that comes out. And I seriously think if you're a serious sports shooter, or I mean really any type of a shooter, this camera could be good for you. If you're shooting video, it's amazing. Wildlife, it's gonna be amazing. Concerts, it's gonna be amazing. I think there's a lot of things. This is gonna be a really superior pro level camera. It's jam-packed with so many different features. Even a simple feature like just changing your display and having nothing on your display at all and being able to shoot like that. You know, there's so many cool features like that they've added, and I can't wait to explore more. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you guys are staying well and healthy. And if you want to see more of my work, you can go to my Instagram at Kristian Bogner or my website at kristianbogner.com. Thank you again so much, and happy shooting.